could I, without controlling the environment and just letting people grab the neck like that and not give them true context for how chokes work and delicate information, could I allow that to exist in the gym morally?
You probably shouldn't.
Shouldn't, no. Absolutely not. It actually got to the point where we've now banned submissions in the gym.
You've banned submissions?
Yes.
Meaning, give me more context to this.
I suck at Jiu-Jitsu. How do I suck less at Jiu-Jitsu?
I guess to suck less.
People are going to be, where are we going, Bryce? All right. Chris, how are you doing, man?
Dude, I'm so glad to be back here.
Yeah.
It feels like every time I walk in, this podcasting suite gets even better and better.
Yeah,
Like,
man. You've been there I think we did an episode where it was all white too, didn't we? Where everything was still bright white in this room.
Every iteration you've had of this podcasting room, I've been in part of it.
Yep,
somewhere.
I think that's right, man. Glad to have you back again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for letting me come back.
Yeah, dude, we're always happy to have you at the gym. It's been 2+ years since the last time you've been here.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
And so first, just wanted to start, tell me about how many seminars you've been. You've been in the States for about 3 weeks doing a tour.
Yeah.
How many seminars have you done in the time period that you've been here?
So just visiting friends. I've been to 11 or 12 locations. 12 loads of friends I've needed to see.
And then how many more?
5.
So I kind of wanted to start on this because I thought it was interesting. You don't, you're traveling, you're flying in between the states constantly, doing all kinds of travel, and you generally just have a backpack. You just bring a carry-on.
That's it. Yeah.
And so tell me how you pack a carry-on for 3 weeks and all kinds of states, all kinds of different jiu-jitsu. What is your thought process? What is your conceptualized version of packing this carry-on to be able to have enough stuff and teach jiu-jitsu?
Don't take a gi.
Don't take a gi. So that's number one?
Yeah, don't take a gi. After that, it's pretty easy. Gi is the worst thing to have to try and travel with, because if you're traveling with a gi and you need to do laundry, then it isn't going to dry. If you're going from place to place, it isn't going to dry in time. And after that, like it's easier, I guess, in the summer months because clothes are smaller. Like compression bags, just compression bags. But like even some airlines, especially because they can be a bit pedantic about the sizing of things. You know, there's like drawstring gi bags you normally get. Like it's like some high-end gis, you get some nice drawstring bag. Always pack one of those, because then if like your bag isn't going to fit into like the little carrier, like little space thing they have to like check your bag, just pull one of those out, just dump a load of stuff inside it, and then like play the game at the check-in desk. Like you know what's about to happen. It'll fit. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that works pretty consistently, but traveling around and doing so many flights, it definitely is going to eat into a budget. And I think just by doing that, I think I had 4 flights on Frontier. And if I had not done that, because I used their the personal only, not even like the carry-on size, I think it would cost me an extra $400.
Oh man. So that's just a personal backpack then. That's your small personal item that you're bringing.
Yeah, that was it.
Man.
I don't know how it fit inside. I took loads of my stuff out and I had like a little sling bag, like stuffed loads of stuff into there. Put that sling bag inside my jacket so they wouldn't see it. Like carried my laptop separately. I'm just like, see, the bag fits. And as soon as I got down to the jetway, I was like putting it all back in my bag again. Just like, why are we playing this game? Like, why?
You've got 6 jackets on while you're walking down the jetway. I like that.
Which again, if because a lot of these, especially I'm doing connecting flights, I don't have to deal with checked bags. Like it's going to be the biggest pain. I think just last year I did 40 seminars and 50 flights in a year. I think eventually after you get to that kind of number, you just know, right, how much you need for a given period of time.
When you're doing 40 seminars a year, when you're going and visiting all these different schools, Are there any big things that you pick out that seem to like stand out that some schools do, or maybe even a few schools do, that you've gone to that are noticeable, that are just the way that they have a space for locker rooms, the way that they teach, the way that their students act? Is there any things that like stand out to you when you get to go? Because you not only get to go and do a bunch of seminars, but you do a bunch of seminars in all kinds of different places, all kinds of different countries. And so I'm sure there's all these different cultural things mixed into jiu-jitsu that are interesting. But is there any kind of standout things, especially things that you go, man, I want to bring that back and have that at my gym?
I think there's a definite middle classification kind of thing of jiu-jitsu, in that people are trying to add so much more amenities into their gyms. So you go into the gyms and there's now saunas, there's hot tubs, there's cold tubs, there's all these things that get added, but it doesn't really change the jiu-jitsu. Which I guess if someone's going to book me, they're of a certain kind of mindset anyway. Like there's a brilliant gym over in Iceland, Molnir, that has you can fit like 10 people in their hot tub. Then it's got a giant sauna, you can fit another 10 people in there. You've got a plunge cold tub. They used to have a Viking bar and stuff like that. But at the same time, I was in Kyoto and I was in a 1930s dance studio, which I don't think had been upgraded since the 1930s. Beautiful gym. And they just got some jigsaw mats out of the attic, and that was it. And so I think that's one of the beautiful things about jiu-jitsu. As long as there's something comfy on the floor, like everything else is a bonus. And yeah, you can go into gyms, like some gyms have, beautiful lockers, and, some gyms really put effort. One gym in Chantilly had a kids play area in the top, but you boil it down, it's just, we want some mats. There's a hallowed ground. Like even behind me right now, we've got the mats on the floor, and we were kind of laughing that you kind of have a bit of a panic attack when you go near it and you're like, I can't walk on these.
Yeah, I can't put my shoes on these mats.
Can't put my shoes on these mats, man. No matter what.
And that's like, yeah, that's another thought on it though. Are there certain things that seem, besides the mats, that seem to always be at every gym? Are there certain things that you notice that are kind of broad, that no matter where you go, what country you go, like, this seems to stay the same?
I think aside from the mats, that's it. It's the only common denominator. Like I've been to some gyms where they've got disinfectant like sink bowls, like before you walk on the mats, and you're supposed to walk on those and clean your feet, and then you walk on the mats. Some places just don't care. Some places have merch available. Some places just drag mats out and then they just put them down. So it's always, it changes pretty much everywhere I go. But the mats never change, essentially.
Is there any place that you've taught at, that has affected your jiu-jitsu more than you expected, or affected your jiu-jitsu more?
I think the biggest change, the biggest thing that affects my jiu-jitsu is the Globetrotters camps. So last year I did Estonia, Germany, and Maine. And I think there was like 250 in Maine and 300 at the European camps at each of them. And on all of the mats, there were at least 30 to 50 black belts in attendance at each one, which, you're doing 6 days of camp, 4 or 5 hours of sparring available a day, plus all the classes. And you've got, I think at one of the camps, I think at least 50% was taken up by brown belts and black belts. So when you've got like 100, 150 high-level people on the mats, and you're spending 4 or 5 hours a day just sparring with them, whatever ideas you have, you're going to come back with some interesting like changes to what you're doing. I don't. That is such a rare situation to find yourself in. I did 3, but unless you go hunting for those things, it's not something you get on a daily basis. Like you don't really get. Especially for the cost of the camp, is what, $300? Like $300 to go train with like 50 black belts for a week. Like, in what lifetime would you do that?
And it's so interesting too. You get, we've talked about this before, how in jiu-jitsu, a lot of times people have this false idea that the best guy is the one who beats everybody up, or the guy that would be the most helpful for you is the one that beats everybody up. But you can learn so much from there's so many people, I'm sure, on those mats that have crazy amounts of experience grappling. And you can hear them explain something that maybe you even like to explain, and you like to explain, you feel like you explain it better, but they may say one sentence and you go, oh, wow, I haven't done that.
Well, that's the over the past year, I guess I've been a bit of a pilgrimage, a journey, shall we say, of trying to understand what it means to be a coach. And it's very easy. We've both come through, for a jiu-jitsu for a long time. And the criteria for running a jiu-jitsu gym is usually just be a black belt. And the criteria for being a black belt is just be a badass. But then to be an effective coach, you have to be a badass. You have to be able to roll well. No one wants to walk in the gym and just like clown the black belt. So you got to keep your skill in the sport, but then your ability to disseminate information, like your understanding information, your understanding of coaching practices, and then outside of that, you got to have a basic understanding of business, like if advertising and branding, etc. But then creating an environment in the gym, and it's rare that you come across someone who is capable of all of that in a high level. I'd say environment control is probably one of the biggest factors about actually keeping students in the long run anyway. Because if you can't control the environment, like you might be a killer coach, you might have great rolling and great teaching ability, but if your environment sucks, if you don't have control over the people in that room, and they're like toxic personalities is now starting to crop up, that's going to affect your gym. And understanding interpersonal relationships and managing people, because it's not just coaching them, it's managing. That can be a downfall of most gyms, unfortunately.
When you say kind of controlling the environment, what does that look like for you? What is that? What are the things you do to control the environments at your gym?
We kind of laugh about it, and it's kind of like an in joke in the gym. But essentially, I'm a communist dictator, as in it's a very socialist kind of way of looking at the gym. But there has to be I'm a dictator at the top of it. I don't know if that's important. I don't know if that's the right way of going, but it seems to be working well right now. Like one of the things I said on the Mental Models podcast, and I think you heard it as well, was the idea of risk assessment. So just from my history of like my professional history and getting qualified in that, it's easy to risk assess the space. It's most of us who own businesses do that anyway, and most of us who care about jiu-jitsu, risk assess the space. We make sure that people don't walk on the mats with bare feet. We clean the mats afterwards. Make sure there's no sharp edges near the mats that people are going to get impaled on or something like that. It's stuff we do, and that's easy. You don't have to have much understanding to just care about people in that kind of way, as long as you've been part of a jiu-jitsu gym. The hard part was risk assessing jiu-jitsu in the first place, as in, how do you risk assess the sport? And I know that anyone listening to this is probably already just logged out at this point. Like oh God, like Josh, get more interesting people. There was logic to it in that. So the logic of a risk assessment is you have hazard versus risk. So hazard is what is the likely outcome of something happening, and risk being the chance of that thing happening. So if you look at the hazard being in a jiu-jitsu space, 1, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 would be mild bruising, 2 would be first aid, 3 would be time away from jiu-jitsu, 4 would be hospitalization/surgery, and 5 would be death and paralysis. And then risk is the chance of that happening, or I'm going to say physical and emotional control in a situation. So using the car analogy is that if you have a car going at 40 miles an hour in a built-up area, and you have no sidewalks and no street lighting, you get hit by a car at 40 miles an hour, it's death or paralysis. If you've got no sidewalks and street lighting and people are walking in the middle of the road in a busy area, chance of someone getting hit by a car at 40 miles an hour, pretty high. So we either manage risk by putting in street lighting and sidewalks. So now you've got people walking, but they're on the sidewalk. Chance of so the risk has come down. Chance you still get hit by a car at 40 is still going to kill you, but the chance of getting hit by that car now is depleted. If I can't put in those things, I slow the cars down. So people are still getting hit by cars maybe, but then our car's going at 5-10 miles an hour. So now I've got a level 1, level 2 style injury. In the jiu-jitsu space, the only way you're going to cause death and paralysis is anything involving the neck. And pretty much then anything involving the neck, I need to be hyper aware of. I need to make sure, because I can't change that. Like I can't put people in neck braces. I can't put them in big inflatables, kind of like airbags around their neck and stuff like that, and helmets. It'd be a bit dumb. So instead, I have to change risk. So I have to control the environment. I have to control what people are capable of and what point they do that on the mats. If I let a white belt have full control over the neck and they've got no physical and emotional control over themselves, we've got a 5x5. We've got a dangerous circumstance. Any joint submission falls into the category of level 4 because you're tearing ligaments, which still, if you've got no physical and emotional control, you got a 5 times a 4. It's still very high risk scenario. So that then allowed me to then start look at jiu-jitsu from the beginning again and go, right, what information would I want to give at certain points that marry up to that idea of a risk assessment? Is you can still train jiu-jitsu and have a lot of fun with jiu-jitsu and make progress, but it's the moments that certain information come out. Because if I don't if I just give people free reign and let them kind of see what they do on YouTube and just like, here's how you do a rear naked choke, or this is how you do like a standing guillotine, and you see them cranking people's necks. I'm like, it's only a matter of time until something happens. Like freak accidents will always happen. You can't really control that. And, I've put this information out into the world before, and, the comments I had back were, doesn't this open you up to legal issues? Because you did a risk assessment. If something goes wrong, will then you be held more liable? Well, I'd argue that I'm not doing it for legal reasons. Waivers are kind of worthless anyway. But if someone turns around and says, "Well, what did you do to control this? Risk assess this situation." If you ignorance isn't an excuse for negligence. Like you can't then say, "Oh, I didn't know." Yeah, cool. So what? That doesn't really fly in the face of the law. But even on a moral standpoint, like if you care about your students, going back to this idea of environment, if you care about your students and you care about their safety of doing a sport, the days of tap out and affliction and the flaming skulls on the back of the t-shirt are gone. Like we're a professional outfit now. Like you said there about all these gyms around the world, they're not just a bunch of mats always in the middle of the room. Now we're adding amenities in because we care about the people in there. But we can add environmental things like that into the gym, like hot tub saunas and clean mats. But are we managing the people? And that's the bigger one, because that is I had Johnny Buck on my podcast a couple of years ago, and he said the main reason that people ever leave jiu-jitsu is the environment. The coaching could be great, could be crap, but it's they'll stick there if their friends are there and if the environment is good. And so that's been one of the biggest changes, because then I've had to think, right, I can't change the danger of jiu-jitsu. I can't make submissions not work. I can't put people in neck braces. So I have to have direct control over the environment. And if that means being a dictator in that scenario, then fine. But I have to manage that environment, because that will then change the risk chance, making the environment safer.
There's a lot to unpack there, Chris.
Dude,
so
there's
a lot of places we can go with that, but let's go off of this. Are you then, because this is a hot topic in jiu-jitsu right now, what about giving your students the freedom to learn their own stuff, and to learn the neck breaking mechanics that they need to learn and figure out on their own, or else you will stifle their creativity?
I know exactly where you're going with this. I think like that whole conversation right now, like, you know, because I know it's eco. We're talking eco and CLA at this point.
we were talking ego. We just haven't named it yet, but yes.
Yeah. Elephant in the black room here. I could hear Bryce laughing at that one. Yeah, it's a learning tool, and we know it works as a learning tool. I am of an opinion that anyone pushing it very hard is trying to create a USP. And we were talking about earlier when we were talking about videos and putting jiu-jitsu onto the internet, is that everyone's doing it. Mm-hmm. It's not hard to create a YouTube channel, put a camera up and a microphone. Quality changes things. We're trying to find our own unique selling points. Mm-hmm. And eco is one of those things. And it's that conversation, it's who can scream that word loudest. Like, I'm the true eco and stuff like that, and I'm the most academically trained in it. And a lot of seminars are getting pushed. It's like, you know, come learn an eco seminar and stuff like that. It's kind of like, but it's missing the wood for the trees. Is I'm trying to learn jiu-jitsu. I think it works as a tool in a gym. Right tool, right job. Like, if I need to get something across to people, it might be the best moment for it. But when you see people kind of doing a lot of mental gymnastics to try and get around certain things, especially anything involving the neck, like, I can't, you know, other sports, yeah, fine. But this is a combat sport that can result in serious injury. Mm-hmm. I can't let you have free reign over it. Yeah. I have to be, you know, my competency, understanding the sport, the reason why I'm the coach, makes me legally and morally culpable to make sure that you remain safe. Mm-hmm. I have to make sure I have full control and full awareness of the details that you're getting when it comes to that thing. I have to share those details. I can't let you just fuck around.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want, man.
Thank fuck for that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I suddenly realized that I was like being very, very coy with my language.
People would be offended if you didn't speak your mind, Chris.
Very, very fair. Thank you. Yeah, I can't. There may be ways of doing it. There may be outcomes where people have had success in it and used eco from the get-go. But again, this idea of risk versus hazard is that, yeah, in a scenario where that risk is high, it doesn't mean it's automatically going to happen, but there's a chance. Mm-hmm. And I can't allow that to happen. Like, morally.
Yeah.
Even base morally, I can't.
So, I mean, since you brought up eco, since you brought it up.
You led me on, sir.
Yeah, since you brought that up, give me, I know this is something that you have experimented with. Can you give me the pros of, because like you said, it's the right tool for the right job. Give me an example of what is the right job to, or the right reason to use kind of the ecological approach.
The analogy that I give, especially when I'm doing seminars and I'm trying to get ideas across to people, is the bonsai tree. Is like my visualization of it. Is that if I need to teach you the defense to a rear naked choke, if I need to teach you the details of a rear naked choke, that is like snipping the leaf off of a branch. It's like the Kurt Osiander quote where he said that if someone asks for the defense of a rear naked, I'm not going to tell them because it's the wrong question. Is it, I can tell you the answer, but people are still taking your back. They'll just get you the other multitude of things, just not the rear naked choke. Mm-hmm. Or I can teach people to stop taking your back, or teach you to not expose your back in that way. And then all of those things die. And that's the idea of the bonsai tree, is that I can be there snipping leaves off this tree forever. And new leaves will keep growing. And it's very detailed, very delicate. You know, it's a fine pair of scissors to take that leaf off. But we then go down the tree. Is that, okay, well, if I stop people from passing your guard, if I give you great guard retention, then we kill side control, we kill north-south, we kill mount, we kill back control. Okay, that's interesting. So we'll go down another level. What if I just teach you great balance? Then you aren't hitting the floor in the first place. But it's the amount of chaos that then those scenarios create. Is that the details needed to cut a leaf off are different to just maintaining balance and being able to take someone down. It's a lot more chaotic, whilst one is very detail orientated. So it's different tools. Now, I use more eco as I go down the tree for, like, if I want people to get better at maintaining balance, it's like soaring away at a tree. It's something you do every day, and it's chaotic. Whilst then anything I need to teach up in the leaves, very, very detail orientated. So it's like I say, right tool, right job. And that's how I kind of spread the information out. Like guard retention, again, like you can make that quite eco. But I can't eco a arm triangle. I could, there's ways about it. I could but it's such a delicate area. It involves a lot of physiology and danger because we're trying to cause injury. I can't let people mess around there. I have to give those delicate details.
And that's a perfect example too, is the arm triangle. How many times have you learned the arm triangle from somebody different and you're like, man, I don't think that would actually, I would probably squeeze somebody's head really good, but I don't think that would actually choke somebody. You know, I can see this guy's carotid artery in the video. I can still see it exposed. You know, there's no, that choke is not there. And if you can give the right detail and the right explanation that could take that arm triangle from this sucks and this would only work as a neck crank on people to this will actually choke somebody, why wouldn't you give them that sentence?
It was actually because, you know, again, we play act in jiu-jitsu. We're just black belts in an arcane form of hand-to-hand combat. We're nothing else. Anyone comes to ask me for legal advice or financial advice, I'm like, I teach people to sit on other people. Don't, give me a break.
Yeah.
A very intelligent physio friend of mine, he explained that the amount of effort required to close off someone's arteries is 11 pounds of pressure, which is enough to make your fingernail turn white if you push into the table, because you're stopping blood going in. He says that's all it's required for a choke to work. And so giving that detail of, right, if you're squeezing more than that, something's wrong. So that's how I then look at, but that's a detail again, you need an intelligent person giving you that information. You can't just mess around with it, because if you just see a neck and think, well, I need to crush it, then he also said the amount of play required to cause severe injury to the spine is 4 millimeters of shear. So if you imagine the vertebrae stacked, 4 millimeters, it's over.
Oh, wow.
So that's why, you think of the head outside single leg that was banned for white belts, 13 years ago. Because if I get hold of a standing guillotine and I fall backwards, A, it's probably the wrong angle to get a decent choke. But B, is that going to cause 4 millimeters of shear as I land backwards? The answer is yes, because that had to be banned because people were getting paralyzed.
Yeah.
Exactly. Could I, without controlling the environment and just letting people grab the neck like that and not give them true context for how chokes work and delicate information, could I allow that to exist in the gym morally?
You probably shouldn't.
Shouldn't, no. Absolutely not. It actually got to the point where we've now banned submissions in the gym.
You've banned submissions?
Yes.
Meaning, give me more context to this.
This episode is brought to you by the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro. How would you like to get every single course that I have ever made that I've mentioned on this podcast? Every single match breakdown, every single seminar that I've taught and I've referenced that you guys can buy. How would you like to get that for one really, really low monthly price? Well, that is what the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro is. So I'm constantly telling you guys about these new courses that I have. Master any position in 6 weeks. The ABCs of running a martial arts school we just put on there last month. Some of these deep dives of seminars that I teach into pressure, into arm bars, into all these different things that people want to hear about. But if you buy all of those courses individually, it literally is thousands of dollars at this point. Or you can pay one low monthly price with no commitment at all and get everything that I have and then everything that I will be posting all for one price. and that is only available at the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro, and that is only available at simplifyingjujitsu.com. I'll make sure to link it in the description. Let's get back to the episode.
Dude, yeah, when people hear that, they're like, huh? It's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What do you mean you ban submissions? You de facto banned them. So first years can't use them anyway. That's going to be the outcome of this whole idea of a risk assessment is first year you can't do a submission because I want you to have full physical and emotional control first. If you can fully physical and emotionally control the scenario, we'll talk. If you're just slinging mad arm bars and just like hipping through it, I haven't got time for you. Mm-hmm. Everyone after that, including black belt, every level, is you have to get to the minor control of a submission. So that could be locking someone up before you attack the neck, or it could be like say for an arm bar, locking up the shoulder. Mm-hmm. For a leg, for a heel hook, it's locking up the hip. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to control that for a slow count of 5 before you put the submission on. And if you get to the slow count of 5 and you get to the end of it, why would you even put the submission on at the end anyway? That takes the emotional amplitude out of the situation, because like if you're slow counting 5, you ain't emotional. It also creates a lot of physical control, and if you can't control that for 5 seconds, did you ever have that submission? Mm-hmm. If you say no, I'll see you in 2 years. So essentially, yeah, de facto ban submissions, but the result of it is it makes everyone's submission stronger because their control goes through the roof. Weirdly.
So that actually makes sense to me. As a like, if you're, I assume somebody who'd be better at jiu-jitsu, it would make sense too, because as you get good, I guess when you normally teach somebody something, especially a submission, they will try it and then go from 0 to 100% trying it. You know, try to go like, oh, this armbar isn't working when I try it slowly like you, so maybe I should crank it harder, right? Yes. And honestly, too, usually it just doesn't work anyway, but it does really risk that injury. When you go with somebody who's really good, it's like they put you in an armbar and it's as if you are being held there as they slowly apply the armbar. And obviously, if they wanted to apply that armbar with that control much quicker, they could, and they would hurt you. But when you start to feel that, like guys that have legitimate control on their submission, you have a few seconds to think about what you did, you know, where you're going, oh no, you know, this arm is fully extended. Maybe I can turn my, okay, you got me. And so I definitely see that, you know, and I do see that is when you watch leg locks now, everybody knows how to do the false reap. Everybody can do the craziest deep leg lock entries. And then you'll watch and you'll be like, man, they don't finish these guys. You know, they finish guys who are afraid of leg locks. And when the ankle gets touched, they tap. Mm-hmm. But they don't finish a lot of the guys that they would actually need to, you know, what they say, have breaking mechanics. They would actually need to break the leg. And I think you and I both agree that that's down to not having good enough control of the leg.
It was actually, we even giggled about it earlier. It's one of the jokes we have is that most of the things I say, Danaher says a week later. And he even went on, I think his most recent Instagram post is about that, about controlling the limb first and creating full control over it. And it's all stuff we read and anytime I've ever rolled with anyone who's of an elite level leg locker, the bite they create on the leg is terrifying. Mm-hmm. And like you said there, like when those kind of like elite level black belts get you in a submission, before the submission even comes on, you know, oh, I ain't moving. It wasn't the speed of it, it's the control of it that's terrifying. So I need to then change how we then learn, because I'd rather people have that from day one than 15 years time as a black belt. It doesn't make any sense. Same with chokes, as in, you know, if you can put a choke on with 11 pounds of pressure, you're always going to get that choke. But if you're there cranking the hell out of it, A, you're risking more injury, but B, you don't have the control. And if your accuracy is off and you're just squeezing, you know, a choke should work within 5 or 6 seconds. If it's, you come to those competitions sometimes, and then they've got people who just don't care, and you're slamming chokes on them, and you're thinking, well, how is this guy surviving? Because your accuracy is off, and you've never done a choke properly because you have people tapping to pain, not actual effectiveness of choke. So we need to change that. we'd change it so that people actually put on the joke slowly with no pain. If they can still get a tap, they're always going to get a submission. They're always going to get a knockout or something. It's the same with like joint locks. So I'm very much a fan of ignoring techniques and relearning them from scratch. So joint locks, we don't break bones in jiu-jitsu. So when you say, oh yeah, he got his arm broken, no, he didn't. Like, he got his leg broken, no, he didn't. Maybe a freak accident, maybe it broke the tib, fib or something, but we didn't break anyone's anything. We tear ligaments. They're joint submissions. There's no bones there. But our nomenclature's off. We say, oh yeah, break their arm. It doesn't sound as cool as like spraying their elbow. It doesn't psych people up as much in competition. But that's what we're doing. And then so you think, okay, submissions are a mechanism of causing injury. And they cause injury through either hyperextension or rotation. If I'm trying to cause a hyperextension injury, the way I kind of explain it is that, say I have a workbench and a block of wood. I'm going to put that block of wood inside the workbench, and I'm going to vise it in. And then, the block of wood's got a cut in it. I'm going to bend it. I'm going to try and break it where that cut is. Mm-hmm. I'm going to grab the furthest point away because that's the highest amount of leverage. And I'm going to break it. And when it hits its point of no return, it's just going to go. If the clamp isn't tight in the workbench, does it break? No, it moves around a bunch. Which, if you're doing a submission correctly and you're holding on to that upper part of the limb, it shouldn't take as much effort to break the block of wood. Mm-hmm. If it's moving around in the workbench, it's going to take more effort. It's like 1 or 2 mil of movement. Same as a rotation injury. Is that if I'm trying to unscrew the lid off a bottle of water, and the bottle's just rotating in my hand, I'm going to be here forever. It's the same with when you see people like really cranking the heel hook and really hipping into it and stuff like that. If that was effective, you wouldn't have to do that because it should be a case of the bottle is clamped and you're just cracking the lid. So it's the control. It's always the control. But if people are, again, the environment idea that, I say people, no one in our gym does submissions anymore. And then the next question normally comes is, well, how do people win? I said, why would they want to win? Rob Bianatsky said it really well on my podcast 18 months ago. The main form of competition is our own teammates, which is sad. And that's all the vast majority of toxicity in every gym is from that. Is that, the hierarchy system in jiu-jitsu creates it. Is that you're a blue belt, you look at the white belts and go, fuck you, like you're staying down there. You look at the purple belts going, I'm coming for you because I want to climb this monkey hierarchy. Is that important in your own gym? I'd argue no. We're trying to learn the sport. We're trying to learn it safely. That we can have competitiveness, but the hierarchy is what makes it a problem. I'd rather they're good at control. So I don't need submissions. So it's very holistic, very multi-angled how I've approached it, and there's a good reason, as you can see.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense to me. The idea is, I had this conversation with one of my students not too long ago, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and we were talking about like a similar thought of, should you focus on submission or should you focus on points when you're training? And I said, well, neither really makes sense if you look at it. You should always be focused on the next exchange that you're having, right? And each exchange has its own kind of little battle. And each time you just focus on like, oh, I'm in bottom side control. This is the way I can win this exchange. If you lose the exchange and you get submitted, well, then it's a reset. Who cares? But if you go to the next, then, oh, maybe you're in half guard now. And then your next thought should be, this is the way that I should win this exchange. When your mindset is, I should submit this guy, or he should submit me, or if I sweep him, I score 2 points. What happens is you get out of the idea of each position has value. In each position, I'm trying to win this exchange. When you have that mindset, your focus switches to just being better at jiu-jitsu. It stops being about, well, did I win or did I lose tonight? And the problem with that is like, oh, well, maybe you're winning all the time. Your training partners could suck.
Yeah.
Really is irrelevant. You could be saying, man, I hit these 25 different positions where we had these exchanges tonight. And instead of losing 25, I only lost 24. One of those exchanges, I actually made it to the next position.
Yeah.
And then you can actually have a reference and say, not only am I getting better, I'm able to see myself getting better. And I stop having that, and back to your original point of environment, I always look at environment as the goal from a coach's perspective, especially as a business owner. The goal is I want people to want to come back to the next class.
Yeah.
If you want to come back, obviously if they're injured, they're not going to come back to the next class.
No.
But then if they don't notice themselves getting better, eventually they quit. They eventually go, you know what? I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm putting in time, but I'm not actually getting better, because a lot of times the mindset is, well, I'm getting submitted still, right?
Well, that was an interesting one recently. So this may be more controversial, and I do understand I am at the wrong sex to actually make decent headway in this. But I'm starting a women's class when I get back home. And I thought, you know what, I don't understand the female perspective. I'm not equipped. So I'll ask. And I went around a load of my female jiu-jitsu friends. And I said, if you ran the club, or if you started again, or what would you wish that men knew about jiu-jitsu? And the vast majority that said, don't run it like a regular class. I was like, and they're often, not from necessarily my gym, but across, Europe, America. I went as far as I could, like just surveyed, like, what would you do differently? And the main response that I got was, don't run it the same. So I then try and pass that information and go, right, what do you mean? And the main response I was getting is, communication means more. And I realized that the way I run my regular class now is different anyway, but even my language is still maybe a bit outdated. Not using personal language, as in not make it about the person and the person getting better, but make it more about the team. And it's something that I do anyway. So when I run my regular class, the main message that I keep pushing is that, using a soccer analogy, we're Manchester United and I'm Alex Ferguson. We face Man City at the weekend, but midweek practice, we're on the same team. There's no logic in the defenders hacking out the striker's legs, and there's no logic of the strikers sending 100 goals past the goalkeeper. It's a rising tide. We're all here. We learn the sport, and then we make each other better. And that's one thing now I say when people join the gym is it's not necessarily they walk in and I say, thank you for joining our team. You're here to make us better, not necessarily the other way around. Like, team progress comes second to self-progress. And that's, like you just said there, when people feel that they're not making personal progress, that's when they get sad. But when you're there feeling you make a difference to the team progress, it's a rising tide. And so that's how I then wording all the material and how I want to run the women's class is it's not necessarily about, it's the same as I do the men's class, the main class, the mixed class. I want to run it as welcome to the team. Like, you've joined a basketball team, you've joined a volleyball team. Like, you're here to make the team better through your attendance. And by being part of this, you'll learn the sport and get better as a side effect. And then it takes away that kind of inter-club kind of competition of that we're trying to one-up each other all the time. Like, I remember one of Dan Herzog's students who'd moved away. He said that that's one thing he actually then was very good at, is making everyone worried that he was giving extra information and they weren't getting it. Like, oh, maybe this guy's been told something, or maybe I've missed out that lesson, or maybe I've missed out that bit of information, maybe trying to help that other guy up. It's like they're battling each other, even if that wasn't the case. And yeah, sure, it might make some great overall competitors, but how much of that has risen through the bodies of people who didn't get there? And yeah, that idea of environment, I think that's a bigger change of my language. Of every class is, it's not a case of, when I teach a technique, I don't say, well, when your partner do this, when your partner tries to get you in this kind of submission, you want to try and do this, or when they get that, I'm like, no. When we want to come up together, this is the outcome I want as a team. This is the outcome I want strategically for us to be good as a team. And then when we go, we win as a team, which I know we kind of have in jiu-jitsu anyway. Like we go to the competition and we're like, we're head nod, we're fighting fit, we're Gracie Baja, like, support the team. Then you get back in the gym the following day, you're like, fuck everyone. Like, and that's the biggest problem, because then you're going in every night to prove yourself. And in those earlier days, stronger personalities will survive because sometimes we're just a bit too stupid to understand. But the vast majority of people fall out of it. There's an issue there. It's not the sport. Sport's great. There's a deeper one at play.
This episode is brought to you by BJJ Mental Models and a really cool, absolutely free gift that they are giving to I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners, and only I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners. So Rob Bernacki, who's been mentioned on this episode multiple times, Chris even referenced him as the best seminar that he thinks he's ever attended. Rob Bernacki has a 9-part course that is available completely free for I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners. So if you go to bjmentalmodels.com/I-Suck, you will be able to just enter in and get this completely free course. And this course is called Jiu-Jitsu for Imbeciles. And this is this conceptual framework that Rob shows all around the world that people really love, and it really makes jiu-jitsu easier for them to understand. And again, this is only available through BJJ Mental Models, but it is also available to us absolutely free. So be sure to check out the link in the description, and let's get back to the episode.
So this, to me, this type of thinking is easier to explain as people progress, because a lot of times you can tell somebody something and they won't believe it until they experience it for themselves. And you can, I have an episode of the podcast that I did. It's just a solo episode. It's called The Individual Responsibility of Teamwork. And it was just about this idea and this mindset that if you always are trying to compete, especially at the gym, you're always competing at the gym, one, you're going to get injured, but two, people will just not like training with you. And you will lose your training partners, and it will actually cause you to stop being as good or stop being able to progress in the same way. But when you have the mindset of, I want to help this person get better, you gain a stronger training partner. And that training partner tests. And I learned this when we would do positional sparring, and we would positional spar like De La Riva guard. And I was a competitive purple or brown belt, and I'm only getting to train with my brand new white belts. And then I'd go, man, this guy's actually getting good at this one really, really specific position, and it's pushing me more too. I should show him more about this. I should try to help him more with this. And I feel like when I explain that to my guys that are a little better, it's more, and I think it's a lot of the culture in my gym too, but it's more of this idea of the next guy should not only get to be as good as me, but he should get to be as good as me faster than it took me. And I feel like that is, again, something I can do as guys get better, but newer guys, they have so much trouble grasping that idea.
I think the reason, so belts are an issue. Absolutely. And I think because we're both black belts, we don't care. We've got nothing left to prove. We got to the top. And so, like, we can kind of keep saying, belts don't matter. They don't matter to us. Because we got there.
Just like money doesn't matter when you're rich.
Exactly. Exactly. So the way I kind of reframed belts in the gym isn't a way that you can be better to climb up the rank. Is I know what roughly every belt feels like. I've traveled enough. I've rolled with thousands of people. So I roughly know what each one should feel like. The way I word it now is that white belts are here to learn the sport. I'm teaching you football. Blue belts are on first team. If I say play a certain strategy, you play the strategy because we're working as a team. Purple belts are team captains. Brown belts are assistant coaches. Black belts are coaches. So a team captain, I expect to understand my headspace and be able to give that information. Brown belts are assisting with understanding strategy because it's a sport and strategy changes. And again, the dictatorial way of training is that, part of my job is to understand strategy. Like we said earlier, at some point in time, leg locks were a winning strategy. I could let everyone just play around and invent their own game, but I want the team to get better. So it's my job as a team coach to go, right, this is the winning strategy. I have researched, I have played, I get to go around the world and try different things on different people. This is the kind of strategy that seems to work right now. So as a team, we're going that way. And that's why I don't like that idea of belts are that problem. But then it's the so I think we also cause half that problem ourselves. Just through historically, the idea of a mat enforcer, and I call it like the abused child mentality, is that we had a kid, young lad, join our gym. Good lad. He's really he's going to turn out to be a great grappler, but he's instantly trying to prove himself, and he just goes hard on everyone. And it's very easy as the higher belt to go, this kid's going hard, let's give him a bit of a kick in to put him back in his place. But that's the abused child problem, is that if I give that lad a kick in, he then thinks, well, violence is how I prove myself on the hierarchy. I'm going to now give lower people a kick in. And the cycle continues. So I made it an automatic thing that every round is play. You automatically play. You can have the hard rounds, but it has to be verbally agreed first. You have to go, you have to tap and bump, and then you go, do you want to go? And if they say, yeah, let's go, gloves come off, chips land where they fall. But you have to give them a choice. And so then this young lad, I go up to him and went, do you want to go? He went, no, can we play? Yeah, sure. That's fine. I'm going to give you the choice. And but I expect the same of you to everyone else, is that, if you with lesser people, you should say the same. Do you want to go? If they say no, cool. That's fine. And again, I think it's that we talked about environment. We are guilty of so many of those issues. There shouldn't be a mat enforcer if the culture is correct, because you then create the wrong mentality coming forwards. And actually, it's funny because I've now met your little one. The final one I use when someone walks in the room is, I've got a 10-year-old, almost 11-year-old son. Say he wants to get better at being a goalkeeper in soccer. And he says, Dad, I've got a game tomorrow. Can you make me better? I've got a choice. I can blast the ball at his little head. Fuck him. Yeah. I can blast the ball past him. Fuck him, I'm better. I can just kick the ball off the field. Fuck him. It doesn't help me in any way playing with this kid. Or I can kick the ball in a way that he may or may not save it, but is suitable for his skill level. Because if I do that for long enough, he will get better at saving goals, and I'm going to have to get better at sending them past him. Because if then he plays a game tomorrow and his friends are like, hey, did you get much practice in yesterday? And he just says, yeah, my dad kicked the ball at my head for an hour. He didn't get any better. And that's the same thing you're saying there, is that these people, there's always an adult and child dynamic. There's always someone who is not as skilled or powerful as someone else. It is up to the adult to create the right environment for the child to progress, which is easy when you're a higher belt. But then you have these white belts who then or blue belts who try and start proving themselves, and then the cycle continues, because then you go, oh, he's getting a bit uppity, I'll give him a bit of a kick in. And then we get the abused child thing right back in again. It's all environment.
Man, that makes a lot of sense. I think that is, on the same, we've talked a bunch of different things that keep kind of coming back, but on that same idea as to why I love the idea of designated winner or some type of training method that is not deadpan, but also is not full speed.
Yes.
Because then it's very easy. That to me has always been the easiest way to explain to everybody at once. Your job, if we're doing a designated winner game and it's for guard retention, that means that both the top player and the bottom player's job is to get the bottom player better at guard retention.
Yeah.
And that is, during that 3 minutes, we both have the focus. So we're actually both paying attention to the moves being done, but only from the bottom player's perspective. And when I get close on a pass and he loops his leg over and kicks me away, I'll go, oh, that was good. Do that. I'll give you the same feedback. Do that again. And being able to do that, I think, really does help people grasp that concept. But still, it's so hard when you deal with a bunch of different people and a bunch of different personalities to be able to kind of get that through to everybody that like, hey, our job, whether even if you want to be a great competitor, our job each night is to make each other better so then you can be a great competitor, you know?
And that's the thing that I said about language is that we can keep saying it's all about the team. But then when we say, oh, your partner here is doing that, we need to stop and we need to do this, the language reverts into interpersonal competition. And that's what I mean by like there has to be that language change of, because we both know we want the whole team to get better. And it had to be a conscious effort on my part to then take out that language of, oh, when your partner does this, do this to them. Then we're back to competing.
Yeah.
I was going to say something else, but it kind of slipped me. Balls.
Well, let's say this. Let's say you have somebody on the team, though, that everybody hates. Like, hypothetically speaking, for me, let's say it's Bryce. And, you know, you should still be allowed to have everybody on the team beat up Bryce, right? He deserves it. I mean, that's what's the point of having having all these tough guys on my team if they can't handle Bryce when he needs handling, you know?
But it has to be Bryce's choice.
Oh, okay.
That's
Bryce, do you choose? Are you cool with us beating you up as a team? Like, Bryce likes it, I think.
Yeah, but he might be a pervert.
I feel like I don't.
Did we factor that in?
But that's all the more reason to beat him up, right?
Yeah, he likes it.
You know? Yeah.
Sorry, Bryce.
I was gonna say I feel like I don't have a choice most of the time. Just like we were talking the other day, I show up every time I show up to Friday Revive Open Mat. Junior and Kyle are standing there with welcome arms and just start talking crap on me immediately. Kyle throws me around. Junior's jumping on my back from across the room.
But you have the choice to not go there, you know?
Yeah, I guess
That's you could just train at our gym, you know? I think that's where your choice is in that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bryce. I may have outed you a little bit there.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird because, you know, we're going to get all comments where people are like, yeah, Bryce has harassed me, you know? Yeah. And so we always ask for specific comments under the podcast episode. And so if people are still listening, be sure to comment that Bryce is a pervert.
Yeah. Hashtag.
Hashtag Bryce is a pervert.
Yeah. That's the main fun for this episode.
So we've talked about this idea a ton, but not specifically about you created recently an episodic show on your YouTube channel called How to Create Jiu-Jitsu. And the first 2 episodes are out now, right?
The reason I delayed it is because all 6 are out on my Patreon, and that's pretty much where I put all my content as I record it. Pretty much any idea that I get just goes straight onto there. Like everything I've done on this tour, I've tried to do as many unique sessions as I can, recorded every single one of them, and I put them on there. So there's God knows how much footage right now. But that's what we were saying about. So I'm slow because I didn't want to just like, people pay for the Patreon and then just dump everything on YouTube and they could have got it for free. So that I'm drip feeding those episodes. But that's like when we were talking about coffee earlier, is that idea that when you're recording footage, understanding your media. So, you could easily record clips or something like, Instagrammable dopamine hit clips of 10 seconds of someone hitting something crazy. I think that is, unfortunately, negligent as hell. Mm-hmm. Because half the time it's a submission of some sort and you're not giving context for it. So essentially you're putting a weapon out into the world without explaining that weapon. Mm-hmm. Talking about that idea of a risk assessment, what the hell are we doing? Because then you're giving someone no context for something that can cause either death, paralysis, maybe less, maybe war, or something that can result in someone going to hospital. And you're just chucking that into the world. Let's not do that. Mm-hmm. But, understanding your medium, or if it's YouTube, it's long form educational information. And the way YouTube is right now, especially with some channels out there are so well put together, is I need to really get better at it. But it's episodic. It's not everyone's out there kind of making hey guys, I was going to show this clip today. It's poorly lit, it's poorly edited, it's poorly audioed, and but they're a dime a dozen. Like everyone, that's an easy thing to do. But creating something episodic, like something with, an intro, good cinematics, good audio, that takes effort. Like I think we can up our game in jiu-jitsu a little bit. And that was the plan with that.
Do you, man, on that note, you see that was something we were both talking about a lot, was like you see that, nothing wrong with recording technique videos on your phone and posting them online, but it is just flooded. There are just so many people doing that, and no one, or very few people are creating things, especially on like YouTube, which is where a lot of us are consuming media now.
Yeah.
And a lot of us are learning things now, but things on YouTube that are enjoyable to watch, jiu-jitsu things on YouTube that are just enjoyable to watch. Very few people are doing that. And like you said, when we were at coffee today, it's because you have to learn all kinds of other things. You can't just know good jiu-jitsu and then expect to understand the lighting in the situation and understand the audio and understand the visual that you're trying to get. And no one really is making much money on jiu-jitsu YouTube, so you can't really hire that out very well anyway. But getting to see that, what have been some of your main thoughts on this, how to create jiu-jitsu specifically, that you're trying to accomplish and trying to be different with?
I think the main thing is that the purpose of it was to do it as a story instead of like, oh, hey guys, here's a new technique. This is what I do from this position, which is, how many times have we heard that? Like, yeah, when I'm in guard, I'm going to do this pass. Again, easy as hell, and it's everywhere, and you don't stand out for it. But the idea of how to create jiu-jitsu was like, I kind of did a voiceover at the beginning of the first episode of like, if you could start again, what would make sense? What would you do differently? But then how would we teach it? Now create a story. I've storyboarded the idea. And then the concept of it was, because I was doing it across every class, every gym that, in the area that I have under my kind of wing, I wanted to show it was repeatable. I could go into every single gym and do it again, and these outcomes would keep appearing. And then allow me to then record it, but also voiceover and explain my rationale. So it's not just me recording a class, but also then, right, when I do this part, this is why I did it. This is why the teaching happened. This is why the coaching happened. This is what the outcomes I expected. And the beginning of every episode, again, I did a voiceover of, right, this was the purpose of this episode. I want to see this outcome. Like, as soon as the episode starts, give the reason for the episode. Like, what is the hook? I'm not exactly, I didn't do any kind of media training. I didn't go to university for it. But, you watch and you digest enough information on YouTube and you see how people deliver it. And it's all very well put together. And it's not hard to learn. I'm not an intelligent person. Audio's a big factor. Audio's the thing that kind of differentiates between quality. If you've got poor audio, people know it's poor quality. We were talking about when we first came in this room, like, the cameras, great cameras you got set up. It's a great lighting and everything, but it's audio that's the hardest part. It's all audio. And so being able to actually learn, like, especially in the gym, like get half decent audio and then have that good voiceover audio and stuff like that. That's the hardest part of creating that. I'm excited. I'm trying to storyboard new ideas to then make more episodic content. Especially being someone who gets to travel the world. Like, I'd like to be able to do that more, which I probably would do for the rest of the year.
And it's so hard to decide what to, because literally you do have to become a film director, and also a videographer and also an audio engineer. And it's hard to decide, like, okay, if I'm going to do this, it's going to take all this time. What do I want to put my time into with it?
I've got a question for you. How hard did you find it initially to deliver to camera?
I would say at first I felt like it was really hard, just because I the first time that I ever really delivered jiu-jitsu to camera was when I did, I guess I had my podcast first, but a lot of those Zoom interviews, even though we were on camera, we were just using audio anyway. But when I did my first BJJ Fanatics instructional, it was, I told my first joke in the instructional and nobody laughed because I was just talking directly to a camera. And it was, at first, that was really hard. And if there's one thing that I'm so thankful for about the podcast was I had watched a video by Think Media, and they had talked about the importance of a video podcast for content creators. And their reason was because short form content was so important. And they're like, one of the best ways to get short form content is through big, long form podcasts with good video. Yeah. And that was really what put me on the idea of, okay, I really want to record this and this podcast and have a video format with it. First, we were putting it on YouTube and literally getting 0 views on it, but getting listens. So I was like, man, I don't even know if this is helpful or not. But especially in the solo episodes, it helped me feel really comfortable starting to talk directly. I mean, because when I do the solo episodes, I record it generally by myself, and it's me sitting in the room for an hour. I don't do any cuts or pretty much any post editing, and I'm just staring directly at a camera, saying dumb stuff that I hope people are going to laugh at 3 weeks later, I know you said to me before, like, you're kind of jealous is that I get to do weekly episodes and I've got Naki to help. Like, if you don't have a guest, it's you delivering to camera, but I've always got Nak. Like, a few times I have to kind of like do the same, like 45 minutes to camera, which, like, first time you're in the gym as well. Even if you try to demonstrate with someone, like the first time you look at a camera and then you try and just like start talking, it's like, how do I even start this without sounding insane? Yeah. Or like, my cadence and tonality and stuff like that. What the hell am I doing? What do I usually do with my hands? What do I usually, and you feel awkward those first times. And that's like, it is something that definitely you get better at the more reps that you get doing it. That was something early on with the podcast when I started to do video stuff. I was doing like private lessons with Chewy about how to be a podcaster. And he was like, you just gotta do it. And he's like, you just have to he goes, try to not be in the habit of doing edited stuff. He goes, because then you're able to self-edit while you're talking. You're not having to, he's like, if you notice that you say a lot, try to just slowly stop saying He's like, just go in and try to deliver. And he's like, at first, if I show you my first videos, they're horrible. I don't know what to say. You can tell I'm awkward in it. And he's like, but now everything I do is like one take, and it saves me so much time, and it makes these things so much easier.
That was one thing. So my last Fanatics release, I didn't have Naki available because I'd already come to the States for the Globetrotters camp. So I had my friend PJ Lucy, who is a black belt under John Cav over in Ireland. And I asked if he'd just help me, go to Fanatics and record. And I think I did it all in maybe 2 takes. The only time I think we had a break was that I think someone's phone went off. But the rest of it was just one long kind of like, let's just go for it. And he sat there afterwards and went, that was insane. You just did 2 hours of delivering jiu-jitsu on a single take. And I was like, yeah, because I do this every goddamn day. But the first time you do it, like, I remember those first videos, it was like 16 takes. Yeah. Just to get the first words out.
Yep.
And it gets easier.
And I remember they had me do an intro for my instructional on Fanatics, and I probably did 10 takes of it. I didn't know how to deliver what I was trying to deliver. And now I feel like the biggest, as silly as it sounds, the biggest difference is when I'm doing the podcast, when I'm doing any jiu-jitsu, whatever, I just speak from the heart and tell you like, hey, this is what I think right now. This is what I believe, and just try to explain that to the best of my ability. And you just kind of will trust yourself. You don't have to have a bullet pointed thought process of, well, I'm going to talk about this, and then I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this. You go, I'm going to explain arm bars. I know arm bars, and I can explain arm bars to a random dude on the street. I can explain them to a camera, and you just try to deliver in that way.
I think that's the interesting part of that skill set is that you can have people who've got great jiu-jitsu and great coaching, but it's their ability to generate content from it and deliver to camera, which you then think how many people were missing in that media, from being drowned out anyway by nonsense, but can also just have those great ideas and also deliver them. to when you're sitting in the room and it's just you and a black box, it's so eerie. And yeah, I wish there was an easier method of understanding that and how to deliver it, and we could actually get those great people out there. I mean, Globetrotters is a great version of it because there's a room and that the camera is secondary and full of people. But when you're trying to create that kind of episodic content, it's hard as hell. Like when you try and do the voiceover and stuff, like you're trying to like make those videos. God, the amount it takes.
Yeah.
The one I remember, because I didn't listen to jiu-jitsu people when I got the ideas of like how to do it, is I actually just went and looked at, I typed in YouTubers, how did you do what you did? And one of the things that kept coming back to was like, imagine you're delivering to your friends. So what I did was I hung pictures of my friends underneath the camera. So I hung pictures of my students like on an A4 bit of printed paper. I hung it under the bottom of the camera, and I delivered to the camera, delivering to them. Because then it was like, it was almost like, there's the camera, I'm looking down, like, hey guys, so, the plan of today is like, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I'm just delivering to them, kind of ignoring the box aspect of it. And I think when you start getting subscribers, YouTube and whatever, your and podcasts, etc., you kind of get a relationship with them, and you realize you're now delivering to them.
Yeah.
Like if someone asks you a question on Instagram, like, what do you want me to talk about in the podcast? I'm then delivering that answer to that person because they're probably listening. So it's like, hey, so the idea behind this one is like, yeah, so now there's an automatic conversation. Even if it's one way, there's a conversational aspect to it. It's not just there's a box.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, because you do start to notice you say something, and like for me, I don't know if it's like this for you guys on the podcast, but there are times I'll say something and the podcast will be 6 more days before it comes out, and I'll be thinking of it the whole time, like, man, how is that going to be received? How is that one, that one statement that I made? People are going to be mad about this one, I'm sure of it, and then, top comments like, hey, you're gay for saying that. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so, but you do, for as much as you get those type of comments, you get way more people like, hey, that sentence you said was so helpful. That one thing that you said has, or they send you something 6 months later and they say, this has helped my jiu-jitsu, just that little thought process change or that little change. And that's always too, like when you first start, unless you were just either mega lucky or just unbelievably good at it. Everybody is talking to the camera and then getting no views or very few. And something that changed my thought process was like, the guy was saying like, okay, if you're getting 50 views on your podcast, imagine, it doesn't sound like a lot, but imagine that you were in a room and there were 50 people in that room and you were delivering that information. You would be really excited about that.
Yeah.
You would be really impressed by that there were 50 people paying attention. But because it's so easy to compare yourself to, well, this guy's getting millions of views and I only have 50. And it's so much, like that little tweak in mindset though, for me was like, oh wow, this does make it way easier to recognize that, like, if I couldn't even picture, the amount of people in a room. I've never spoken to a room that big with how many people listen to this podcast every single week. And it's like, that has, I think, helped me have that confidence knowing like, well, the room that I have is people that want to hear from me. They're excited. We release every single Thursday and they seem to be excited to listen on Thursday. We get a lot of our listens right when it gets posted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think once you start getting the audience, like I say, it's that kind of disconnected version of just delivering to a hall. Like you walk out and it's like, yeah, okay, some people find that terrifying. Singular dead camera is way worse.
Yeah.
Like if you can, you can find I think, especially when you do classes and stuff, if you can deliver to a room of 30, you can deliver to a room of 1,000. It doesn't really change after that. Like delivery is delivery.
Hey guys, Josh here, and I'm noticing as I'm re-listening to this episode while I'm doing the editing that we make a lot of jokes at Bryce's expense on this episode, and usually I ask you guys to comment something specific for the algorithm gods, but today I just want to ask something very specific of you. Please do not get in the comments and start saying that Bryce is a pervert. Definitely don't do that. Maybe even it would be better if we did in the comments for the algorithm, you said Bryce is not a pervert. But whatever you do not get in the comments and start telling stories, even if they're not factual, about Bryce being a pervert. Don't do that. That would be absolutely wrong to do to our executive producer of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, who works really hard and is not a pervert. So definitely for the algorithm, I mean, it wouldn't hurt the algorithm if you did say he was a pervert. It really wouldn't hurt anyone but Bryce. But don't do that. Please, guys, don't get in the comments and don't call Bryce a pervert. Let's get back to the episode.
Did you ever have any, and I know we've talked your kind of unique start to teaching jiu-jitsu, but did you ever have that nervousness when it just came to teaching in person?
Oh, completely. Like, the first time I went to a camp, I was a brown belt, so I felt like a fraud because there was loads of black belts watching and stuff like that. I think because teaching in the class, there was only 3 of us, and I was just left there. So it was just kind of like, they kind of left me in charge, and so it was 3 or 4 people. Like, these are some ideas, and they actually then formed part of the second episode of that Create Jiu-Jitsu as the fallacy of novelty. I think is like an important one. Is that especially when you're delivering classes, it's the idea that you have to show as much as you can to kind of prove your worth. Like, people are giving you an hour of their time, show everything. And when I made the 6-week, the Create Jiu-Jitsu came off a 6-week beginner course. And it's easy to see that number 6 and go, right, I need to do 6 different classes. Just did the same one again. Because what's novel for me isn't novel for you, because you still need to learn what you just did last week again. I think that was one of the bigger changes when it came to delivery, is realizing that I can slow the hell down. I don't have to show as much. People need time. I don't have to be as novel. And once I kind of got that idea and the cadence for delivery and space to get those ideas across, it made delivering to bigger rooms a lot easier.
I like that you're the how to defend everything guy. And you're like, yeah, you don't have to teach everybody everything all at once. But it's interesting because you see that so often when you see somebody who's nervous about teaching, they will give 1,000 details. And the problem with 1,000 details is if you give me 1,000 details, there's no way that I'm going to judge equal importance or know which one is more important. If you hammer me with one detail and you explain it 1,000 different ways, I will understand that detail is, at least in your opinion, the most important thing, the thing that I should be focused on.
Well, that's what I said about when I had Rob Bernatsky at my gym, is that probably one of the best seminars I've ever seen, because he started the seminar off saying, this is the outcome that I want to get across. It's this misalignment of the hips. He took all that time to then explain that concept in multitude of angles, so you know exactly what he meant by the end of it. It wasn't like, I've had those seminars before where it's like, hey guys, I compete against this person, and I get to compete against these guys. This is my game, and it's like a butterfly sweep, and then a DARS, and then a rear naked choke. I went to one seminar, and it was a triangle choke. So first half, it was a maybe hour and a half, 2-hour seminar. First 45 minutes was warm up.
Oof.
In a seminar.
Oof. When you say warm up, did you guys jog? Did you shrimp up and down the mats? Cartwheels? Oh my. So you hit, your jiu-jitsu is great after that. What was the need for any more after that 45-minute warm up? You've done it all.
It was, So we did, it might have been an hour-long session. So 15-minute warm-up. We then spent an hour doing a triangle from guard, a cross collar from mount, an Ezekiel choke, and a bat choke.
Dang.
Oh, and a Toriando pass.
And those things were not connected in any way, huh?
No.
They were just the same. They were just 5 individual moves that you did. This is probably an accomplished person at the seminar.
Black belt.
Okay. Yeah, that's that to me is the hardest thing in the world. If you're going to show me a cross collar choke, I would expect that there is something that you are going to bring to the table that should blow my mind. I've seen the cross collar choke a million times.
Yeah.
I would hope that if you are going to take that time and say, okay, this is my best stuff, that you are going to explain it. My problem, though, with most coaches, that especially most coach competitors, people that are competitors that get these seminars because they're good competitors, they will show you step by step the cross collar choke that they were taught 15 years ago. And they will show you each step that they were taught, even though they now do that cross collar choke totally differently. And they are probably amazing at actually accomplishing the choke.
Yeah.
But when it comes to how they share it, it's like you're going to put one hand on one collar, and then your free hand grabs the other collar, and then you squeeze, and you're like, wait a second. But that's, you literally just narrated in a very bad way what is happening. You didn't explain any detail, any thought behind it.
But I think that going circles back around to jiu-jitsu in general, is that you get a black belt because you're a badass. Doesn't mean you know how to coach. And we get plopped into that position just because of the highest rank in the gym. And we're supposed to disseminate information. And for the majority of us, we just do it as we were taught and put no thought into it. I remember going to see Ryan Hall a couple of years ago. Might have just been after I saw you last, actually. I think I went to DC after I saw you. And great class. Like, Ryan's amazing. I asked him afterwards, like, how did you rearrange everything for your jiu-jitsu? How do you teach so differently? He went, who says that those beginner guys were the right way? Like, I agree with him, and it's, I think, a hard thought process to go through of what do you start again with? And it's easy to go, I do jiu-jitsu so differently now. And then you come to teach jiu-jitsu and you're still rear naked choke, armbar, close guard, and a Toriando pass. That's it. And it's like learning numbers at 1 to 100 at random points. Like, here you go, here's a 36, here's a 70, and it's like, well, what am I supposed to do with these? And that was the whole idea of Create Jiu-Jitsu of, if you could start again, what would make the most sense? And the hardest part is then to go, what would you show first? Taking everything out, what would you start again with? And so the point now that I don't show any techniques, because it's just completely rewritten what makes any sense to me. Like, you think, like I said, there's no submissions for the first year at least. There's no dominant positions explained. There's no takedowns. There's no passing. Because I'd rather have more context for everything that ever comes afterwards than just, here's a bunch of techniques that have no context to them. Which then circles back into ego. I think context is everything.
So expand. Tell me more on that. When you say circles back to eco, context is everything.
Because it's a tool. It's a learning tool. And my job is to try and get... The most effective way of teaching jiu-jitsu would be the matrix of me just downloading it into your head. That would be the preferred method. But I can't jam a screwdriver into your head. So that's out of the question. So we have to find different tools. And that could be dry drilling. It could be designated winner. It could be sparring. It could be eco. It could be a multitude of things. But my end goal is for you to understand this sport. How I get there will adapt all of the time. But the end goal is still, I need you to understand this. Context and concept is king. Always. And concept is definitely a word that's gets thrown around. Like, the amount of times I've heard someone say, yeah, I'm a very conceptual teacher. Now here's a rear naked choke from back. I'm like, how is that conceptual?
Yeah.
Like, it's the concept of being able to choke someone from the back.
In a very specific move.
Yeah, I'm like, that still doesn't explain what's happening. Like, you're just doing something again. So it's one of those words that is abused an awful lot. So, maybe context of why are we even here? You know, what is the general purpose of this? I remember it was a Danaher seminar 9 years ago at Braulio's gym in the UK. And he started the whole thing off by saying, I've got a thought experiment for you. Say you have a friend who is about to, who's had an argument with someone at work, and they're going to have a fight in the car park tomorrow. He calls you up because you know you do martial arts. He goes, hey, like, Josh, will you tell me some advice that I can win in this fight tomorrow? To explain jiu-jitsu to me over the phone, that I can use jiu-jitsu tomorrow. And like, you know, I'm in this room of like, you know, there's a best part of like 100 people. God knows how many black belts. Mm-hmm. And they all just sat there like, try not, you know, need to play guard? What the hell's guard?
Yeah.
Well, you need to get side control. What the hell are you on about? Well, you need to go for a choke. What does that mean? Like grab him by the throat? And it's all of a sudden we don't understand what the hell this even is in the first place. Mm-hmm. I found that fascinating. Like it's you know, I'm sure we've had this conversation before, but when you sit down and try and explain it, it's like, yeah, what are we actually doing? Mm-hmm. Like every other sport, you kind of got a rough idea, like boxing. Cover your chin and punch him in the face. Okay, cool, I can do that. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But jiu-jitsu, it's like, what's the purpose of any of this?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because that's where I feel like that's where you and I's first conversation ever was about this idea that no one is focusing on the why. You know, nobody is focusing on why this move works sometimes and then why it doesn't work other times. And no one's boiling that down. And this was back in
2020.
2020.
It was COVID.
It was COVID. And I think that during that time, it was like, as silly as it sounds, concept was not only not, like, I agree that it's not really understood now, but people at least like it as a word now. Back then, it was an offensive word in jiu-jitsu. What do you mean you teach conceptually? And you know, to other people's credit, a lot of the conceptual teachers that you would see kind of sucked, you know, kind of just made crap up.
Yeah.
But it was still the right idea. It was the right goal of, hey, for instance, a word that you and I have talked about, the control of an armbar. And I think a lot of people listening would go, oh, I understand control of an armbar. I understand what it means to control a shoulder. But if you really said, okay, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Give me an actual verbalized example. Where do you have to be holding the shoulder? What do you have to be, you know, how are you thinking about controlling the shoulder? And a lot of times like, oh, well.
Yeah.
I
want to control the other shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that still doesn't explain why you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's why the analogy of the workbench, that makes sense.
Yes.
We're trying to cause injury by hyperextending something through a crack in the bit of wood. Mm-hmm. If it's not clamped into the workbench, it'll just move. So clamp into a workbench. Mm-hmm. That's a concept that is applicable across anything that causes a hyperextension. Mm-hmm. And so it's a visualization we can all kind of get behind. Not just, again, like you said, like we need to control the shoulder. Okay. Do I just do both shoulders? Like that's still not a concept.
Yeah. And so often then we're looking at the arm bar, we'll look maybe like from guard and you see the person doing it. And you're like, technically, you're actually not even touching this guy's shoulder right now. There is space in his armpit. There is space on top of his shoulder. You have no control of this guy's shoulder, you know, and you can see it. And it's very easy visually when you start to really understand what controlling somebody's shoulder is, what it looks like. You're like, just suck that space up a little bit. Literally touch his shoulder. You're not going to control it without touching it. And, you know, starting to be able to have simple, boiled down, I always say this is like, we will spend 15 years as a black belt or 15 years doing jiu-jitsu to get one sentence, you know, and that sentence to us is so valuable because it's actually an understood and boiled down version of what this means, of the why of this. But then on the same note is just because I tell you that sentence and you hear it doesn't actually mean you understand it.
Yeah.
If you talk to that 15-year person who's put all of their time in understanding this one sentence, they can explain that sentence to you 100 different ways. They can give you 100 examples of what controlling the shoulder is. And they can give you all these different, I saw this guy control it this way. I saw this girl whose legs are a lot shorter. She controls it like this.
Yeah.
And you're able to do that. And it really does kind of, that will give somebody the understanding that you want. But when you teach that way and you can see and I'm sure that this happens to you, when you go and do a seminar and you get guys that have been training for 10, 15 years and you explain to them something that they have done successfully for years, but they've never really understood the why of it, they will go, oh, this is the biggest thing ever for me.
Yeah.
Because I hit this 95% of the time, but apparently the other 5% of the time is because I'm not accomplishing this.
A prime example of that. So this is almost like then a selling point for eco. Weirdly, you kind of said it there, as dirty as it sounds. So and this is why I say it's a tool. Is that you said there I've got someone who's got long legs and short legs. Concept for me is just another way of saying physics and physiology. Is I need to apply physics and affect physiology. So I need to clamp the shoulder to then affect a hyperextension through the elbow using leverage at the end of a wrist.
Mm-hmm.
How that happens is very different to every single person. We're still using physics and physiology to cause an injury, but it changes per person. As long as I teach you the physics and physiology, then give you the right environment and the right training tools, which could be CLA, you will find the way that suits your body.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to come with context. A prime example of that, that kind of idea of we kind of do it, but never really clicked it. So a good friend of mine, Raul Haldu, I think he used to run 10th Planet Amsterdam. So he used to run the 10th Planet European camps and would get in Eddie, Jean-Jacques, the Martinez brothers, and it'd all come for a singular camp. It was crazy how many contacts he had. He came and did a little seminar at my gym, and he was all talking about extension and contraction when it came to putting on an inside heel hook. Like either extend your leg, like a karate kick, or contract your leg. And none of my guys were getting it. We're trying to play with it, and we're like, man, we just can't get the same bite that he is. We're trying extension, we're trying contraction, and we're like, what's different? So I said, Raul, just do it to me. I want to feel it. And it felt horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Like the level of pinch he could generate with my thigh, locking it into the workbench, exquisite. But one thing I noticed he was doing when he did it was, and I do it for chokes, but I never really applied the idea across everything, is that if I'm holding onto something with my hands, that's, that's down to my grip strength. If I'm not using my hands to grip onto you, I'm using a scissor grip. So that means like a regular pair of kitchen scissors. So that could be my elbow, it could be my groin, the back of my knee, my armpit. I'm using something to hold onto you. If I had a pair of scissors and I wanted to cut a straw, I wouldn't put it at the right end of the pair of scissors and start cutting. I'd open up the straw fully, jam the straw in, and then start cutting, because that creates the most pressure from the fulcrum. And that's what he was doing. It wasn't about the extension or the contraction. Is that he was when he did his extension to the karate kick, he was making sure that my leg was all the way into his groin, and then he'd close it. It was a scissor grip. And then when he was doing his contraction, he was putting my leg all the way into the back of his knee before he closed it, and then would clamp on with the back of his knee. And that's, again, it's physics and physiology. And so that's the bigger message then, is that I would show that. Is that right? I wouldn't say contraction extension. I'd say you're using part of your body, a hinge grip, like a pair of scissors, to clamp onto something. If you're not using the fully extended version of those scissors, it's not going to grip as tight, because that's physics. So before you get any of those grips, open up the scissors and then latch on, and all of a sudden, it's a replicable grip that we can go across the gym. And not only that, but that context. My students then start using the great white grip, the very deep arm drag. And I thought they were going to cut my triceps off. Like the strength behind the grip had just gone through the roof. And this was blue belts because they had the principle, the physics. Then they just applied it elsewhere. And all of a sudden, all their grips in every scenario just got tighter, which then, that's a detail. We then put it in a CLA kind of environment, and out the other end, we got loads and loads of improved grips. So it's a tool for teaching concept and strategy, not the be-all, end-all.
I think, and this is a little off topic, but it's on that same note. I think something, though, that turns people off about eco is the language used tends to be, you tend to need to be intelligent to understand a lot of the language used. And something that, I can give an example of just through this whole episode. People know what a vice grip is. People know what a pair of scissors are. People know certain things. And so that's, I think, for me, my biggest problem with a lot of the eco guys. And even the way jiu-jitsu is taught, even how Danaher teaches jiu-jitsu, is you feel the need for some type of science degree to be able to understand it. But being able to then relate these high-level ideas into layman's terms is so important, is such a huge part of actually, because, we're in Granite City.
Yeah.
Bryce, is there anybody on our team that has a college degree?
Me, dude.
Oh, okay, Bryce.
Bryce.
We got Bryce who's doing video work, for freaking free right now.
He's the smart one.
Yeah. So that's our college educated guy. And then, you got me who has no education, but being able to explain to regular people this is this idea, and being able to boil it down, I think is such a valuable thing. But you have to use common man language to be able to do that.
A translator.
Yes.
Yeah. As funny as it, I'm sure it messes with them, but I've never asked. There's a lot of the kind of Reddit comments I see about Preet is that if you want to understand Preet, go to Chris. I'm his translator. And it's the same with Danaher. Like, if you want to understand Danaher, you go to Brian. Like, you don't listen to John. Like, it'll drive you insane. Like, you go to listen to Brian Glick. And you're like, oh, that's what he meant. Yeah. So all these kind of really smart people, have these kind of layman's translators, like, sitting beside them going, almost like sign language. Like, okay, you might not understand what he's saying. This is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Frustratingly.
It's frustrating, but it's also like, I think that it's a certain skill that certain people have as coaches to be able to understand where the guy is coming from. Because sometimes there are people that I can recognize, like, this person is just so much smarter than me. But I really do think I'm pretty sure I know jiu-jitsu well enough to understand what he's talking about and then start to get something out of that.
Yeah.
And so that is definitely a skill, but you do need the kind of crazy people that go on these 3, 4, 5 year long deep dives into, defense, or into whatever it is to come away with this kind of genius level intellect. And then I agree, you probably do need translators to then go, okay, this is what he's trying to tell to real people.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that, I think that's, like you say, going back to the eco conversation, is that, Greg's a very, very smart guy. He's very, very intelligent when it comes to this, but it's also the thing that kind of puts people off. And, we're trying to, like I say, learn an arcane form of hand-to-hand combat. And when you've got someone who is then bombarding you with academia almost, you're like, I just want to hurt someone, please. And, kind of putting a full stop in it a little bit, is that anyone who's pushing something very hard is trying to create a unique selling point. And that, I think, as well, causes people to get their backs up.
Yes.
Like, Rob Benatsky did a great seminar. He used aspects of CLA to get part of the message across. Didn't mention it at all, because that's not the message that he's trying to convey. He's trying to get across good jiu-jitsu. He's not trying to like prove that, the teaching practice is behind everything. He just wants you to walk away, a regular white belt, blue belt, purple belt with better jiu-jitsu. How he gets that across, he has a multitude of tools that he understands and can evaluate as well. He's not just head in the clouds going, well, I just gave a seminar. I hope they got something out of it. It's like, no, I wanted to make sure you understood what the hell I just said. The tool isn't the main selling point, in other words. I think that's the part that's putting people's backs up with that whole thing, because it's undeniably a useful tool. We use aspects of it. We all do. Like, it's the cultish behavior behind it. I think it's going to turn people's backs away from it, but then that may cause more harm than good.
Yeah.
If anything, because it'll make people take this thing that actually does work and then ignore it. Like, we're for the trees. We're missing the most important part. We just want people to we want people to suck less at jiu-jitsu.
Yes, and that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
And
that pretty much just came up as I finished.
I think that's so true. It's like people struggle with that. It's a brand, it is something that, and if you were going to brand anything, it's like, if I'm going to convince people to listen to the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, I can't say, okay, listen to the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. This is one of about 50 podcasts that's pretty good at getting you better at jiu-jitsu. That's not a very strong selling point. And say, hey, we tell secrets on this podcast that nobody has. We're talking about things that nobody's willing to talk about in the jiu-jitsu space. And are those things true? No.
Yeah.
But it's part of the brand. You can say that as part of the brand, and that's what sells people on it. And they go, oh, the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, did you know they talk about stuff that nobody else will talk about? And they're on the forefront of whatever. And you make all of these grandiose claims to be part of your brand. And you can't come in with a new way of teaching jiu-jitsu or training jiu-jitsu and say, oh, this is a pretty good way of teaching it. You have to sell, this is the way. This is the only thing that you should be doing. If you ever drilled a move in your life, you're an idiot, and you have to sell that, right? And so what do you think about that statement? You made a face.
Yeah, I know you're trying to play devil's advocate there. Well, it's there are plenty of people that have come through who didn't do it. And I'm sure, there's arguments about it and stuff like that. I don't care. There are people that have, it's could they have come through faster? Maybe. Could be, like you said earlier, we want to speed up how people understand jiu-jitsu. But again, it's understand it. Because I don't want to have someone come all the way to the end and not understand the thing that they're doing. They might be capable, but I want them to also understand this. Like, the whole idea of Neo getting it plugged into his head as I know jiu-jitsu. That would be the A1 way of teaching this. Is just jam a screwdriver into the back of your head. We can't. So we have to find other methods of putting it in, and other methods do work. Speed might change, and but the goal is always the same. And yeah, when there's people who are so obtuse with it, it puts off more people than it catches. And it might succeed in areas, it might fail in others. Again, I think the risk assessment is an important part of that, because I need people to understand it. Like, it's not just a game of football. It's not just learning, walking up and down a set of stairs. This can result in death and paralysis. It is my moral obligation to make sure that everything that happens is safe. And I can't be doing mental gymnastics around something to escape that. And it's scary. Seeing some eco classes where people are doing those mental gymnastics to try and show something without and doing games around it and letting people kind of free reign on it. I'm like, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time someone gets hurt. And it might not be a death and paralysis. It might not be a surgery, but we've all got bad necks. Can we get rid of that, please? Freak accidents, I'd rather they just remain as freak accidents, not as matters for course.
do you feel like that as you've gotten older, this has been why your mindset has started to shift more to risk assessment?
I think it's maturity more than anything. Is that the days of the old tap out kind of, just bleed, tough as one on the mats. We've been through those days. We've both remembered those days, and it was the craziest that survived. We're now supposed to be a legitimate sport, and it's the conversation that's happening everywhere, like CTE and how much sparring is happening in MMA and stuff like that. Like we're trying to be more, legitimate of what we do. That applies to this as well. You can't just have like people come on the mats and give them essentially weapons and let them fuck around. We are the competent person in the room. We want to be able to teach this sport. We chose to teach this sport. We chose to open the gym and maintain a culture. We are the obligated party to make sure people stay safe. And I mean, God, that thing that happened with Sinistro 18 months ago when that guy got his neck broken in the gym, like we all turned around at that. Some people may have milked it in the wrong way. Won't say names. But the majority of us turned around and went, holy hell, that was horrendous.
Yeah.
We're all in that, Sinistro's a really nice guy. I know him from Globetrotters. But we're all in the same boat. All of us are essentially running these firing ranges and then handing out bullets. We're all culpable right now. Not only as head coaches, but then all of us that train. And like when again, I said about that multi-pronged approach of you've got to be a coach, a roller, but also an environmental, a manager of people, is you can't let those people then come into the gym who have no control and just let them run amok. Because essentially, and that's what I find so insane, is we're putting people in a room, people who have no physical and emotional control, giving them, put them in a firing range of weapons and ammo, and then going, well, I haven't got control over him. He's just learned jiu-jitsu. What do you mean? That is insane. And like, yeah, I can't, it's jiu-jitsu. It's the way it's always been. Is it? Are we allowed to do that? Like, you are the person handing out the weapons. I think we said this on the podcast the first time round. Like, it might be the first one, but like, yeah, you're handing out weapons to people who've got no physical and emotional control. What the hell are you doing? You're the person doing this. You can't control them. Do you think you should be giving out weapons then?
Yeah.
I know you got the Second Amendment over here, but still.
Yeah, I'm giving weapons to old pervert Bryce over here, man. I said shame, man. I feel guilty now. No offense, Bryce.
He's gone awfully quiet.
Yeah, he stopped listening an hour ago.
Yeah, that's cool. He's going to tell us in a minute that the podcast actually switched off an hour ago. He's just been too afraid to tell us.
Yeah, he's just on his phone sexually harassing women. Man, I'm sorry, Bryce. I'm sorry that you had to be there for that.
No, yeah. Hopefully, my girlfriend isn't listening to this episode.
Yeah, she's one of the only fans of the show, which is really rough. That really can't get away with anything, Bryce.
Dude, don't worry. Like, as soon as I said the word risk assessment 90 minutes ago, like, everyone's checked out. No one has made it this far into this episode, I guarantee it.
That's true. That's true. Luckily, nobody listens to the show anyway. So, they don't. Yeah, it makes it easy. Yeah. So, Chris, anything you want to say to finish?
We need to be better as coaches, as people in the mats. Being good at rolling isn't enough. Being good at coaching isn't enough anymore. That's kind of my main takeaway of this maturity, is we need to just be better, and we need to get better at managing people.
I know we've given a lot of different examples, but just give me one actionable step for a coach who hears this and is like, man, the culture of my gym sucks, or the environment of my gym isn't good, and I want to make a change, but I don't even know where to start.
Ban submissions.
What a hot take.
Yeah, ban submissions, because then it cascades into all those other things. It'll deal with the risk assessment problem, because you're going to have people doing less things that are going to injure people. It goes into that how do you win? Well, you have to change what a winning criteria is then, because then those people who feel they're just getting wrecked on the mats aren't getting wrecked anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Good place to start in band submissions.
Man, I like it. Thank you for coming on the show, Chris.
Thank you for having me, sir. It's been an absolute pleasure.